MAGA cultist Lauren Boebert gave a deranged, irony-riddled, fact-free speech at a recent Turning Point USA conference. Intrigued? Then click that like, subscribe, and the alert bell, and maybe even check out my Patreon link, and enjoy the video. So apparently over the weekend, Turning Point USA hosted a conference. And for those of you who are blissfully unaware, Turning Point USA is a nonprofit founded by Charlie Kirk, which focuses on conservative outreach to high school and college students. It was founded in 2012 and is pretty much the only reason that any of us know who Charlie Kirk is. Turning Point USA effectively inflicted Charlie Kirk upon the world, and that's plenty of reason enough to hate it on its own, right? But they very often host these conferences, which are quite a spectacle, to be sure. There's quite a bit of money thrown behind it, but it's basically Woodstock for fascists. And they have conservative thought leaders and Republican officials regularly speak there. And one of the luminaries who spoke at this particular conference was Republican Congresswoman and MAGA cultist Lauren Boebert. And I watched some of her speech, and in this particular clip, which is about 2.5 minutes long, even for Lauren Boebert, it was riddled with lies and falsehoods and missing context. And I thought it would be fun to watch this and in real time fact check her. Let's check it out, okay?
Talk to you about the future of our great nation, because there are things that worry me. I get worried when I see young people advocating for delusional and anti-American economic systems like socialism and communism.
And to be fair, that is true. According to polling, notions like socialism, not so much communism, but certainly socialism, is much more attractive to younger generations. But to be fair to them, there are plenty of reasons to despise capitalism. The wealth gap is ever increasing. It seems less and less likely that, subsequent generations will be, able to have the same economic prosperity or the potential of economic prosperity that previous generations had. So when you devise a system and don't regulate it accordingly, and the excesses seem to be, confined to a handful of 1%ers, and you basically screw over the subsequent generation, it makes sense that they're kind of fed up and are interested in alternative economic systems. So that's a failure of preceding generations to make capitalism more palatable for future generations. Let's continue.
I'm worried when I see Chinese Communist Party's spy balloons flying over our nation with a pathetic response by the White House.
So real quick on that one, those of you may not remember, but there were in fact Chinese spy balloons under the Trump administration. And actually, as a matter of fact, those spy balloons, according to John Bolton, the former national security advisor, weren't discovered until President Biden took office. So Chinese spy balloons, which traverse the continental United States under the Trump administration, weren't discovered until Joe Biden took office. That's how poorly Trump handled the situation. And I'll also remind everybody that a recent Republican whistleblower who was supposedly going to blow the lid off the so-called Biden crime family has been indicted as a communist Chinese spy. So I'm not exactly sure that Lauren Boebert or her party have any ground to stand on with respect to Chinese spies. Let's continue.
I'm worried when our foreign policy is in such shambles that it results in the deaths of 13 American heroes while surrendering to the Taliban.
All right, so this is another one. This is a common talking point. It is true that under President Biden's watch, 13 service people died during the withdrawal of Afghanistan, which is, of course, a tragedy. And as commander-in-chief of the military, President Biden does bear command responsibility. That's true. However, when Donald Trump was president during his 4 years, 45 soldiers experienced combat deaths in Afghanistan, which is many more than who died under President Biden. So if we're going to blame President Biden for the deaths that happened on his watch and indict him as a result, then Donald Trump, by that same metric, is many times worse than Joe Biden because soldiers died on his watch too. And by the way, it was Donald Trump who came up with the Doha Agreement and set the terms for the surrender of Afghanistan, and then he left Joe Biden to hold the bag because Donald Trump had 4 years to get out of Afghanistan, and what he did, like President Obama did, like President Bush did, was he kicked the can down the road because he knew there was going to be no easy way to do it. So he made the commitment, he set the standard up, he set the stage for it, and then let Joe Biden try to execute the plan. So President Biden was the one who had the courage to bite the bullet, get us out of Afghanistan, which is what the American people wanted, and there's no indication that Donald Trump would have done it any better. As a matter of fact, given how stupid Donald Trump is and the fact that, again, he set the stage for the Afghanistan withdrawal, we have plenty of reason to believe he would actually have handled it much worse. But don't let the facts get in the way, Lauren. Let's continue.
Even placing corrupt leaders like Zelensky above the great American people we all swore an oath to serve and protect.
I'm not entirely sure what she means by that. It wasn't President Biden who made Volodymyr Zelensky the president of Ukraine. The Ukrainian constituency did that. President Biden has not dispatched troops to Ukraine. They're not dying in Ukraine, so I'm not entirely sure what she means by this.
I'm worried when the son of the big guy is taking bribes to finance Hunter's bad habits, and three-letter agencies are covering up for them.
So this one, again, is a reminder, Hunter Biden has never been a member of the Biden White House. He's a private citizen, whatever his drug addiction and personal troubles may be. If he's committed crimes, he should be prosecuted accordingly. If he's convicted, he should be punished accordingly. Again, he's pled guilty to 2 misdemeanors. He's working out a gun charge, which is very rarely applied. And all of this has been negotiated by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, and the plea deal will be presided over by a Trump-appointed judge. But again, Hunter Biden has never been a member of the Biden White House. He's just a private citizen. Whereas, if we're talking about corruption, Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, was given $2 billion by Saudi Arabia for a real estate deal days after he left the White House. And when he was in the White House, as a White House advisor, as a member of the government, he was an attaché from the Trump administration to Saudi Arabia. That reeks of corruption. So again, don't let the facts get in the way, Lauren.
Speaking of, we've seen a lot of weaponization and covering up by these three-letter agencies. Does anyone know what happened with the cocaine at the White House? Well, guess what, folks? We don't have an answer because the investigation is already closed. This is shameful. Even to bring in Secret Service in front of Oversight Committee members. And we learned that this is not the first time drugs have been found in the White House under this administration. How much more are they covering up from you? I'm worried when I see all of these scandals and when terrorists and sex offenders are easily entering our nation thanks to Biden's open borders.
So as a reminder, unlawful migrant crossings have dropped 70% under the Biden administration. There were highs under the Trump administration, except during COVID when the pandemic stifled, international travel and international migrant crossings. But border crossings are down 70% thanks to certain policies and resources that have been allocated to the border under the Biden administration and the repeal of Title 42. President Biden has gotten Mexico to commit $1 billion to border security. He's gotten South America countries to expand the number of migrants that they will accept who are seeking asylum. So if the United States can't hold them, we can send them to other countries rather than send them back home. So other countries are assisting thanks to the Biden administration. So again, not exactly sure what she's talking about. And the issue at the southern border has been a cross-administration issue under Biden, under Trump, under Obama, under Bush for decades. Let's continue.
I'm worried when American families living month to month can't pay their bills and have depleted their savings because skyrocketing inflation, overspending in Washington, D.C., and over-regulating, and the attack on American energy.
So again, I'll remind everybody that inflation compared to pretty much every other G7 country is, again, it's still high compared to what it was pre-pandemic, but it was Donald Trump's mismanagement of the pandemic which helped contribute to high inflation. Donald Trump also spent trillions of dollars in COVID stimulus as well. It wasn't just Biden. So to whatever extent that COVID stimulus has contributed to high inflation, Donald Trump also played a role in that as well. But compared to other advanced economies like Japan, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, etc., and so forth, inflation in the United States is extremely low for every advanced economy on Earth, and that has happened under President Biden's watch. So at the end of the day, This speech, of course, delivered by a MAGA cultist to a room full of MAGA cultists, is fact-free, it's irony-laden, it's deranged, it's classic Lauren Boebert.